Hello, welcome to the gun room. Look at this. It's like Celebrity Squares, isn't it? Cast your mind back. You might be old enough to remember that. With me, I've got Nick from the Arsenal Brothers podcast. How are you, Nick?
Hi, Tom.
That
I'm
was your
great.
cue, Nick. Keep up. We've got Lauren, one of the podcateers.
Good evening, good morning, whenever you're listening.
Mac is back, Mr. Mac. How are you, Mac?
Fine, Tom. Good to be back as well.
Excellent. And Jay is bringing up the rear. How are you, Jay?
Very well, thank you.
Good. We're all buzzed up, Paul. It's been a massive, massive result. Well, it's been a series of massive results, which we'll get into. Obviously, WSL, we did Tottenham there. The under-18s have done Tottenham as well, and we bought this home. And I've got to say, we covered every base, didn't we? Last pod, penalties, sending off, the score we got right. We managed to bluff it out somewhere. Paul, did you see it?
Yeah, I watched it all, Tom. I thought it was an entertaining game from start to finish. I thought beforehand, I really considered this to be quite a big test for Arsenal's resilience, coming on the back of the defeat at Manchester United, and with it being a derby, there's added pressure as well. Also, that kind of the kind of business that still exists from last season in terms of losing the Champions League place to Tottenham. So there was quite a bit at stake there. But I was very taken with the way Arsenal played. It was kind of typical tactics this season. First 10 minutes, blitz the opposition, hit them with everything, then sit back a bit, get the goal, go ahead. And I thought the first half performance was absolutely tremendous. That backflip from Xhaka in the first half, when he tried to flick it into the back of the net, such a virtuoso performance from him. Yeah, I mean, I was getting a little bit more concerned with the kind of defensive mayhem that led to Tottenham's penalty, because really that should have been dealt with by about 3 or 4 different people before it even got to that stage to Gabriel giving the penalty away. But the second half, you can see the newfound self-belief and confidence in Arsenal. I think an Arsenal 2 or 3 seasons ago might not have gone on to win that game. They would have come out lacking a bit of confidence for the second half. But I thought the crowd really got behind them. I think the home support has been a big factor for Arsenal this season in terms of pushing the team onwards and upwards. And once the second goal went in, which is just a classic poacher's goal from Jesus, he's there, he's waiting for the mistake, and he pounces. And once it was 2-1, that was it. That savage tackle from Royale, I just think, in terms of footballing skills, even below Scott McTominay, was just appalling. And after that, only one team was going to win it. And I mean, what a left foot finish was that to seal the game. So fantastic win for Arsenal, thoroughly deserved. I think, answer any doubts that might have emerged after the performance of Man United, and winning 7 out of the first 8 games, that's top of the table for them, isn't it?
You just saw my cat's tail on the light go past, which was quite spooky. But yeah, we'll touch on the game in a bit. Obviously, we're going to go into the goals, the penalty, the sending off, everything else. It's 56 years ago that George Graham joined Arsenal from Chavyland for £50,000. He made his debut on the 1st of October 1966 at home to Leicester City. Hey, Jay, is the missus there? Poor old Leicester. Oh, suffering. Also, happy birthday to former Arsenal striker Olivier Giroud, turns 36, and Terry Mancini, who goes back a few years, 1974 to 76. Well, we've got a baffling fixture list, haven't we? We've got a bit of an earthquake there. Did you see it? We've got a baffling 9 games in a month. It's an absolutely horrendous situation. Are we really equipped for this, Jay? Are we going to get a little bit strung out with all the domestic competitions, the FA Cup, the Europa League? What's your thoughts on it?
I think most teams are in the same position as us. We've obviously we've got the Europa League, but I think we're pretty. Obviously, you can't legislate for any injuries. Your fingers crossed, you get through the difficult spells, and obviously, it's the part of the manager's job to juggle certain players, certain positions. But I mean, at the moment, the team picks itself for the league games, doesn't it? And we've got really.
We're all nodding again. Look, here we go.
We've got really strong, really strong players that haven't had much game time at all. So they're going to get plenty. You think of players like Tommy Asu, especially, who, last season, especially for the first half of the season, was absolutely superb, and so he's obviously going to get game time, and Ketia, and a number of others. So I mean, everybody, all the teams at the top of the league, they're all involved, other than Brighton, they're all involved in European football. So it's how well and how lucky, how fortunate you are if you manage to get through it this period without any injuries, and how you managed to come out the other end. And it's going to be tricky, but I mean, I'm confident. You have to be confident. Even the first Europa League game against Zurich, we looked pretty good, and there was a lot of changes in that game. So I think we'll be fine. Fingers crossed we don't get any injuries.
Well, we could always dig out the creche, couldn't we, for the subs bench? That's what we're looking at. We'll fill that up with 10-year-olds and 13-year-olds or something. Bodo Glimt. I thought it was a Lord of the Rings character. Nick, do you know anything about them? You heard anything about them? It should be a walk in the park, shouldn't it?
I mean, it should. I mean, they're all the way up in the Arctic Circle, so that away trip will be something. But I know this week we're at home, so I mean, this should be one we take care of. I mean, this should be comfortably be a team that we can rotate, and especially at home. I don't see us having any issues with it. Like Jay said, I mean, especially having guys like Tomiyasu and Ketia chomping at the bit, ready to play. I think we should be okay. They've had some solid players come through, but they don't stay there very long. So I think we should be okay.
Is it a team of plumbers and sort of wheel fitters or something? Lauren, our Europa League adventure. Is it a priority? Where are our priorities this season? Obviously, we're in contention for the league at present, and we're enjoying all that. Sorry, Paul, we're going to rub that in. But what are our priorities? Is this a big one up there?
It's interesting. I think we're in a similar situation to where we were last season. Okay, it's a bit early yet to be saying it, but I think we're overachieving in terms of what the plan was. I don't think we were never meant to, if you will, challenge for, the league. Again, it's very early. I'm not saying we are, but I think we're in a position that no one really anticipated. I think it was Ramsdale was on. He does a million podcasts a week. He was on one anyway, and he was saying that Europa League is the focus, and that's what they want. That's what the team wants. They want Europa League and probably a domestic cup. I think that's probably where the focus is going to be. Because, I'm sure we're going to get on to City after. They're looking unstoppable. They are looking unstoppable. So I think it would be given, I don't want to be too critical, but given the fact that we are still a relatively young, unproven team, I think Europa League is probably the best bet to focus on and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Lauren. We are probably a season and a half in front of where we should be.
Exactly.
So whatever we achieve is really a bonus. Right, let's get on to German sportswear manufacturer Adidas has extended its contract till 2030. It's worth £60 million per season, according to SP. Basic question: out of 10, what do we think? Because who was it before? Wasn't Nike? Was it?
It was Puma, wasn't it?
Puma. Awful kits. Has to be said, doesn't it? Bloody pants kits they were. Let's go round the table. Paul, you might not want to join in this one, praising up Arsenal kits, and we understand. We don't want you getting any filthy mail or phone calls or emails. Jay, out of 10, what would you say the Adidas kits are at the moment? We've got the black and bronze, and we've had the no more red.
Oh, they've been superb. Pretty much every kit. It's not the kits that I'm concerned about. It's the tracksuit tops and the jumpers. I'm going to be skint for the next how many years. I love the retro stuff that they've done. They brought back some of the old kits and old training tracksuits and stuff. So yeah, superb. Puma was a bit hit and miss. They did the odd kit that I quite liked, but I'm so glad that Adidas, they're staying on because. Yeah, they've released some pretty decent gear, to be honest.
It's one of those, isn't it? The whole sort of structure at Arsenal is getting better and better, sort of externally, internally, and everything else. So, what would you give it out of 10, Jay?
Oh, I'd give it always room for improvement, so I'd give it a 9.
Hey, that's pretty good result. Lauren, what would you say about the old Adidas?
You know what? I didn't realize how much I needed a pink Arsenal jersey until this season. So I'm gonna have to say it's 9.5 as well. I mean, just for argument's sake, I can't give it the full 10 yet. But the exact same as Jay, like I was thinking earlier, like the training gear, everything they're coming out with, it just has, there's such an aura about it. It's really, really cool stuff. And I think we probably should have known the season was going to be this good if the kit was that good, I don't know. But no, I'm delighted with that. I'm really, really pleased. Again, not for my purse, not for my bank account, but
I'm not particularly pleased with the home kit, I must say. It's got that sort of lightning bolt on the collar, which kind of turned me off a little bit, but it was okay. It was fine. Nick, version of events for Adidas?
Yeah, I'm all about it too. I'd also give it a 9.5. And probably my favorite thing, I mean, along with the retro, is they've done a really good job with the yellow kits. And I know just how much that's in the Arsenal DNA. I'm a little saddened we didn't go with that this year. It seems like an every other year thing. But I think they've done a tremendous job with those. And I just hope, I hope we get to see a trophy with one of these kits this year.
Hey, look at this, 2003, 2004, just original shirt. Looked it up online, £319 apparently. Ka-ching, it's not going anywhere. Paul, we'll miss you with the kits. We've got a little bit of a chewy one. Stan Kroenke is apparently...
Tom, can I come back on the kit just for 1 second, mate? It's quite interesting.
The Mac is back.
It's gone from Puma to Adidas, given the historical rivalry between the Dassler brothers in terms of their separate firms, and the fact that the town of Herzogenaurach in Germany is still divided between Adidas and Puma. So yeah, it's quite a market shift, isn't it? And I think as our side looking in, if Adidas wants to become associated with shirt design, you just got to snap their hands off.
Yeah, it's they just didn't hit the heights for me. They weren't very good. Right then, Paul, Stan Kroenke is understood to be exploring the possibility of acquiring more clubs in Brazil, Belgium, and Portugal. If you're committed to Arsenal, I don't mind investing in another club and stuff like that. But I think we're on really dodgy ground here, starting to buy other clubs. Where's your priorities? These sports franchises are starting to grow tentacles, and it's all going to get a bit messy, in my opinion. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's a legitimate concern, because you want your club owner to be investing any money he has to spare in the club rather than gambling on franchises. And it seems to be the new kind of multi-millionaires way of doing things. Collect a series of clubs in different countries, and so if you don't have success in one country, you always fall back with backing a team in another country. So yeah, I mean, I would want the owner of any club I suppose to be totally committed to my club and not be distracted by interest with other clubs. I think it's an increasing worry, the way that a number of Premier League clubs now have got various franchises across Europe, across the States, and Asia, and further afield. So it's definitely something that it's a growing trend. I think it's going to impact upon the club, the ones that are supposed to be in charge of. And isn't it easy to take your eye off things when you look after 4 or 5 football clubs rather than one? So if I was an Arsenal fan,
well, the thing is, Paul, he had his problems, didn't he, with Arsenal to start off with?
Yeah,
bringing in the wrong people, employing the wrong people, putting in the wrong set of systems. So surely he's learned his lesson. Surely, Stan Kroenke.
Well, I mean, you know him better than me, but I think as well, you could take a more positive view and say, well, maybe he's going to make all those mistakes with the franchise clubs and make his mistakes there, and then that'll be for the benefit of Arsenal. I don't know, but the whole concept of franchise club, it just really doesn't do it for me.
Nick, obviously he's US based and he's a familiar face out there. He's not a familiar face in North London, I can tell you that. It's Invisible Stan. It's like the book Where's Wally? If they did one about Where's Stan Kroenke, we'd buy it. What's his reputation out in America like? Because he seems like he's all bells and whistles out there.
Yeah, I mean, the Silent Stan moniker isn't as evident out here. Out here, he's more known as a winner. I mean, just winning the Super Bowl with the Rams. I'm trying to think. He owns a multitude of teams out here that have been traditionally pretty successful as well. So I think him owning Arsenal, especially with Josh, his son, having more of a day-to-day part in it. Week to week, I guess. You still don't see him much, but he's definitely has more of his fingers in that. I don't really mind Stan looking into other clubs because to me, I see them more as investments to where, or I see him with the Rams and Arsenal. It's, these are his premier crown jewels to where everybody's going to know about both of them. Whereas the other clubs, they're going to make him money because whatever he buys them at, by the time he gets to a point where he sells them, he's going to have made a significant amount of money. And part of me sees it as a positive as well, to where maybe we can use these clubs. I don't want to say feeder clubs, but Manchester City's done the same thing. They have clubs all across the world and use them to send players on loan, use them to monitor players, and just use them to build funds. And it's a way to ultimately help the parent club. So I'd be kind of interested to see what becomes of it. I don't think we'll see the fruits of it right away, but I think having a system, especially if they're somewhat connected, which I'd like to think they would be connected to the main club being Arsenal, I think it ultimately could help out.
Well, myself and Jay have reservations. We've expressed it before on the podcast. Jay has even got his spare bedroom and he's got the placards in there that was protesting outside. I mean, that's a scary place to go. Jay's spare bedroom.
Still do have.
Jay, are you worried about that? I mean, it sends shivers up my spine, to be honest. Here he is. He's just getting things right at Arsenal and he may potentially be sniffing around other clubs.
No, I mean, like Paul said, this is what seems to be the way forward. This is what it's happening all over the world with a number of different owners. To be honest, as long as they continue to invest in the club at the rate that they are, and as long as they, I don't want to get to a point where stories start to emerge that maybe Mikel has asked for a bit more investment and the Cronkies aren't willing to let him or release the money, or you don't want to get to that stage because it won't take a rocket scientist to link the two things. So as long as Mikel keeps Mikel and Edu and the guys that are running the club on a day-to-day basis are still getting backed, I'm not really too concerned. The moment that it stops is, I think, then we all become a bit more concerned.
Well, we've got some more news. Tim Lewis from Clifford Chance, he's resigned as a partner at the law firm, so he's about to anchor into the boardroom, and that will be some considerable help because he apparently set up the structure that we've currently got. So it can only be probably good for the club. So we've got the right mixture at least going into the boardroom now. Lauren, let's bring you in for the latest on the WSL, including the deadlock in Spain. That's a bit of a mess, isn't it? Bring us up to speed on that one.
So I'll just briefly touch on that there. There's been nothing done with the I suppose what would you call it, strike of the Spanish national players. So we're going into an international break now, quite important for some teams. For example, Ireland are playing for their World Cup spot next summer. But for a lot of other teams, it is just a friendly break. So England are playing Czech Republic, I believe it is, and the USA. Spain, honestly, I don't know who they're playing, but the squad was released and it was looking completely different. It had a bit of a facelift. So nothing has been done there.
15 players, isn't it?
15, I think it was 15 players were dropped, including Alexia Putellas, who was injured at the moment with ACL, Spain's best player, Barcelona's best player. I don't think she was one of the players to express it, but she did back the other players who expressed dissatisfaction with the management. So yeah, it's not looking great there. Really not looking great in the run-up to World Cup for them. So
you saw his press conference, didn't you, Lauren? Was he a bit out there? Was he a bit bats in the belfry?
It was bizarre. It was very strange. So I didn't watch it, but I was looking at a lot of quotes and I was getting them in Spanish and English. But it was the most bizarre thing was almost every sentence that he said began with I. There was no mention of the team. It was all about him. It was weird. It was very weird. I don't see it resolving unless they get rid of him. Because I mean, how valuable is a manager when your best 15 players aren't there, Yeah, exactly. It doesn't look like they're budging, so we'll have to wait and see. Monitor
interesting. We'll keep tabs on that. Right, we've got a busy, a bit of a layoff now, haven't we? Then we've got a busy period in the WSL. We've also got the BBC Women's Footballer of the Year 2022. Winner announced on the 9th of November. Do you want to quickly run us through who we've got and who's likely to win, Lauren?
Absolutely. So obviously I'm going to start with Beth Mead. We all know the name, love the name. She's up against Sam Kerr of Chelsea, Australian forward, Alexia Popp, who we also know from the Euros this summer, the German forward, Alexia Putellas, who I just mentioned. She is out injured with ACL, I think it was rupture. She's out for a good 10, 12 months, but in saying that, she's the person who's after picking up Ballon d'Or and UEFA Player of the Season. And we also have the only defender on the list, who is Wendy Renard of Lyon, so the French defender, who was a standout player in the Euros as well, I have to say. So look, I mean, if you were to pull together a five-a-side of the best women in the world, there they are there, all the names, all the names are there for you. To be honest, I think Beth Mead does have a very good chance. Why do I say that? Because one, she's the only English player on the list. It's the BBC Awards, and they showed all of the Euros. Okay, so as amazing as Sam Kerr is, probably the next contender on that list, we didn't see her in the Euros. Obviously, she's Australian. So I think she has a good chance. Why not? You know, everyone can vote. You go onto BBC now and get your votes in for her. So yeah, I think she does have a good chance. But again, any of those names are worthy winners.
Yeah, Sam Kerr. I mean, I've seen her just recently. I've only started getting around to seeing the matches now. We've got more exposure, and yeah, she's a hot cake, isn't she? Right, let's get on to that North London derby. Going into the match, there was so much expected from our front three, wasn't there, really? And the pundits and everybody else kind of didn't really take us that seriously. But we came up trumps, Jay. What did you make of the performance?
I mean, Paul touched on it earlier on. We started the game like we have every game this season, and you know, quick tempo, dictating the play, and you could tell Spurs were basically going to sit back. You know, I mean, how many times, I'm sure we all did the same. We all counted. There was a number of occasions in that first half, especially where there were 11 men. Harry Kane was the most advanced forward player for Spurs, and he was, you would say, in a defensive midfielder role for Spurs. They were drilled. They were told to sit back and expect an onslaught, which is what we've done in each of the games. So it was good passing. It was, you know, we were creating chances. I was obviously before the game. You know, this is the derby. This is it's all about the result more than anything else. You don't, you know, you want a good performance, but you're absolutely scared shitless of losing. You know, and you would take a grubby 0-0, but I mean the atmosphere seemed great inside the stadium, and that definitely helped the players. And I mean we dominated the game, and we haven't. I mean, even after, you know, in the days afterwards, we haven't been given. I don't think we haven't been given the credit that we deserved for that performance, because before the game, even though we were top of the league, all I was reading was, you know, Conte this, Conte that, the strides that they have made, rather than the improvement that we've made. And like Lauren said, you know, last season we overachieved, and some people, you know, I was satisfied with the fifth place. Obviously disappointed we didn't get Champions League, but this season it has been, you know, we've gone up another 2 or 3 levels, and you know, all through that first half. You know, obviously there was the wobble midway through the half where you know, Spurs got a little bit more into it, and like Paul said again, we could have dealt with the penalty a lot better. You know, Ramsdale made a great save from Richarlison earlier on, but all in all, you know, we absolutely battered Spurs in a similar way that we battered Man United. You know, we smothered them. We were quicker in the pass. You know, we were creating the chances, and I mean, you know, Harry Kane, one of the most, you know, feared strikers. You know, either side of him, you've got Son and Richarlison, and I mean that they didn't get a sniff really throughout the whole 90 minutes. You know, like I said, they had that little spell. But I mean, our defense, you know, Saliba again. I mean, Saliba was megging. He was not megging their players. You know, it was a great performance. It was a performance again, just to, you know, reiterate the work that Mikel has done, you know, in building the bridges with the fans as well. I mean, some of the scenes, you know, you must have all seen them as well. Some of the scenes of the supporters going absolutely bonkers. You know, there's a real connect with the fans and the players, and I mean, great result. Like I said earlier, it's all about the result, but to also to get the 3 points and to get the performance as well. And we're still flying under the radar. Nobody's giving us any. Nobody's talking about us for the you know, in a title race, and that's fine with me. Don't get me wrong, but we are doing so well at the moment, and that performance against a good Spurs side, but you know, we brushed them aside. Absolutely, and absolutely. I'm still buzzing now. You know, unbelievable. You know, it's just superb.
I tell you, it's an incredible feeling. Last season, when they beat us, it was really hard to put the audio pod together because you want to sound like upbeat and all the rest of it, and I just couldn't do it. I put it to one side for 4 days. I couldn't manage it. But this was a whole different thing. Nick, what did you make of? We were talking last pod, and we said about Chelsea, Spurs. I'm doing it again. Spurs negativity, because Conte has instilled this sort of sit back, wait, and then counter. They've been very boring this season, but I was really surprised that he didn't even bring it.
Yeah, I was really relying on that to work. And when you do that, you're only going to get a handful of chances and you have to take them. And they had their one that Ramsdale saved tremendously. They had their penalty, and I can't think of too much outside of that. And when you're under just constant pressure and constant attack, I mean, it was amazing seeing, I mean, just like you said, Jay, seeing how far Harry Kane was back, seeing how far our back line was up. I mean, Saliba was confronting Kane halfway in their own defending half. I mean, they just couldn't get out, and it just recycled and kept going. And, you know, every game we've had this year, we've deserved to win. We've been in control. Zinchenko coming in, I know he didn't have a tremendous game, but it showed me how Mikel wanted to play. And, you know, there were shouts for Tierney coming in, and he said, no, we're going to play how we want to play, with that 5 in the back, with the 2 and then the 3, or the 3 and then the 2, and then the pretty much front line of 5. And Ben White was really an X factor when he came into that, creating pretty much a front line of 6. And The Athletic, Michael Cox had a great article. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but does a great job analyzing Ben White and how the first half he supported, which he had the assist for Partey's goal. And in the second half, he started to overlap, and that allowed Saka to cut in and get his shot for the Jesus goal. And then he crossed it in for Jesus' header. So, you know, I think we talked a lot last year about Mikel's adherence to make changes, and these weren't necessarily personnel changes, but just tweaks, and really helped us really have a chokehold of the game. And what a great goal to kill off the game. You know, I mean, I think Tottenham can look at this game and say they scored a long range, low percentage goal. They scored off a terrible keeper error, and then there was a red card and the game was done. So I think we talk about us not getting the credit that we want and deserve from this game. You can point at all those things and say, well, you know, it was a one-off, or they didn't fully deserve that. But I think when you look at the performance as a whole, they had a very limited chance of ever coming out of that with 3 points, let alone a draw. I mean, at halftime, I was pretty upset that we were level, because we deserved more. And I was just wondering, how long is it going to take for that breakthrough, and that quick goal got the place jumping again. And I think we were going to take care of them, red card or not. And that was kind of
which you predicted, guys. You predicted red cards and penalties, and I was like, bloody hell, they were right, you know. Paul, Conte, after the game, he he accused Mikel Arteta of making excuses last time round and too much moaning, concentrate on your own team and all that nonsense. This time round, he said the red card killed the game. I don't think that's accurate, do you? It was dead before then. They weren't actually playing with any purpose.
I mean, I think, as I said at the start there, Tom, I think by that stage the momentum was with Arsenal. They got the 2-1 lead, they were pressing for the third goal. And as Jay's pointed out, and Nick as well, the Tottenham's tactics are to sit back and hit you on the break. I think Arteta got the organisation spot on in Arsenal's midfield and Arsenal's defence to limit the opportunity for Tottenham to do that. And once that plan fails for Conte, he's really struggling for a plan B. As you can see by the fact he threw 4 substitutes on, that's a sign of a manager running out of ideas, making a desperate gamble to try and change things. So yeah, I thought, I mean, at the time, it's like most of the things when you see it again in slow motion. At the time, I didn't think it was that bad a challenge, but when I saw it again in slow motion, it's a vicious challenge, it's an unnecessary challenge, and basically that bit of rashness has, sent Tottenham down to 10 men. So any chance, however remote it was, of coming back into the game disappeared at that moment for them. I mean, I just think, I don't rate Emerson Royale as a defender particularly. I think he's very uncoordinated, he's very cumbersome, and he doesn't inspire confidence from my perspective. But yeah, the sending off to me had absolutely nothing to do with the outcome of the game. Also, we're by far the best team. He had the momentum, and Jay made the point about the connection between the crowd and the club, and you could really feel that in the second half, that the crowd was willing them to push forward, and you sometimes reach a stage as a football club where the results get the crowd on board, and then the crowd is prepared to accept the odd dip in form if they see the players giving everything. I think Arsenal have kind of reached that balance at the moment whereby they might have a home defeat coming up, hopefully not next weekend for obvious reasons, and you kind of hope that the resilience of the crowd will match the resilience of the team as well. That'll help push Arsenal forward. I mean, if you're looking for an optimistic kind of viewpoint here, I'm just kind of thinking back to Leicester winning the title in 15-16 when no one gave them a chance. And what really helped them was the blistering start to the season when suddenly they found themselves at the top. They were getting 2 points ahead, 3 points ahead. Then they were going to the rivals, getting draws, getting wins. And suddenly, before you know where they are, they're walking with the league title. And if you start off with 7 wins in 8 games, you're giving yourself a massive chance of being in at the shouts at the end. Now, it may not continue. There's a congested fixtures coming up, but if you look at who are the main threats at the moment, well, realistically, there's only one threat at the moment, and that's Man City. I don't see any of the teams in the top half of the table being a threat to Arsenal at the moment. So, if the consistency can be maintained, I think Arteta's improved as a tactical manager and organizer in the last 3 seasons as well. So, from your perspective, I'd be very optimistic. I think I mentioned before, maybe like a strength and depth for the forwards may cost you if Jesus was to get a serious injury. But at that stage, are you?
Lauren, we're going to just go back to that sending off. I mean, Jonathan Pearce on Match of the Day. I had to watch Match of the Day as well. I had to milk the teats of this victory. I've
watched the highlights every day since. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know. I did it
can't get enough of
it. But Jonathan Pearce said to Antonio Conte, it was a soft tackle. I thought it was an ankle breaker. I don't know what he was watching. Perhaps he was turned round.
Yeah, I think initially when the red card was given, it kind of took me aback a bit. And then once I saw it again, I thought, okay, yeah, completely fair. But there was also another challenge, which I don't think was picked up, and it was on Kane. I think it was well into the 80th minute, but I think he kicked Gabriel twice. I can't remember exactly when that was.
Gabriel was on the floor, wasn't he?
Yeah, floating around on Twitter.
Yeah.
So do you know what, like, if they're still going to continue on like that after getting a red card, those sorts of red cards need to be given to prevent players from thinking they can get away with things like that, So I don't think, maybe it was a soft, you could say, I've seen worse tackles with nothing given. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, maybe, but given the height of the game, given the position that Spurs were in 2-1 down, they could have done anything. So for the players' safeties, it was 100% the right call.
It was a studs up. So for me, it was a no-brainer. As soon as I saw it, I thought he's banging trouble. He's got to go. Right, let's get on with the juicy bits. The juicy bits, as you say, Ramsdale made an early save from Richarlison. That kind of set the stall out there because had that gone in, we would have had a kind of different game for a spell. 20 minutes on the clock. Thomas Partey scores a goal, and he means it. It's not Rosette. Jay, walk us through it.
Oh, I mean, what a goal!
Ding dong.
What a goal! I mean, Saka had the ball on the right side, and he threw in a little dummy, which I loved, and Son completely bought it. I think it was Son anyway, and he just rolled the ball to, is it Ben White, and then White,
yeah,
to Partey. And I mean, there was a brilliant photo. The ball is a good 2 or 3 yards outside the post, and it comes back in. And I mean, that for all of all of his shots that have gone into orbit, all is forgiven after that. You know, I mean, he was on the day, he was immense, wasn't he? Partey,
he was.
His best game for the club by a long way, and he's what a great shot, what a great goal. And it was great, you know, all of the goals, you know, it's so again, it goes back to what I was saying about the connect and how likable this group are. You know, all the players, they're absolutely over the moon when they score. And I know it's a very obvious thing to say, but there doesn't seem many egos in that squad. You know, when the slow-mo's going by after, I think it was Xhaka's goal, you've got like Zinchenko's on his knees and he's like, yeah, you know, all of the players, you know, Saliba, there's how many times this season has Saliba been photoed just going wild, you know, and he's only been with the squad for, you know, a short space of time. So, and obviously when Partey scored, Xhaka was going absolutely crazy. So, I mean, a goal to just go wild over. I wish I was in the stadium. And again, those scenes behind the goal, you know, in the stands, all over the stadium, just superb, just superb.
I must have disturbed the neighbours. I've got to be honest. I screamed the place down. I think it was a bit of shock in there as well. Be honest, Jay, when that ball came from Ben White across, you were probably saying, pass it.
Yeah, that's it. But we'd had a few chances up to that point, hadn't we? I think, was it Jesus had hit the outside of the post, I think, yeah. and Martinelli had, I think, if I remember right, he shot one, and Lloris made a decent save, and I think Saka, there was a cross to the back post, and Saka was off balance, and he couldn't quite get his shot away. So we were, the pressure was building, but like I said earlier, Spurs were so deep that in the back of your mind, you know, especially with an Italian manager, you kind of think, are we going to be able to make the breakthrough? You know, Partey, although he has, you know, since signing for the club, he's not exactly, he's not known for his long-range efforts to hit the back of the net, but he's got a good shot on him. There has been times where he's gone close, hasn't there? So, great goal. One of the goals, you know, we said last week, didn't we? Great goals of the North London derby, and that will definitely be one for us to talk about for years to come. Absolutely,
right on the list. Nick, what amazed me about that whole thing was Spurs were sitting so deep, you could see the space just opening up for that goal in particular. Saka to White and just across. There was huge. There was buses of room there. It was just so unbelievable. And that was, I mean, the one thing you don't want to do to Arsenal is give them space and time, because that's been their bread and butter for years, going back to Wenger.
Yeah, if they had been doing their homework, surely the one guy they could give space to, though, is Thomas Partey when he's in a shooting position. So it sounds like, I don't think this question was ever asked, but you could see during Arteta's celebration, it seemed like it's something they were practicing. And I've thought for a while, you know, we're not traditionally a club that is known for their long range goals. And I think to break down a team like this, something like this was maybe going to be on, or going to take something like this for the breakthrough. And it was just talking about Saka, I mean, being double teamed about the entire game. Son was all the way back on him. So tell me, I mean, how much work he's doing defensively, what he can give going forward. And I saw a stat earlier today that says Granit Xhaka has more touches in the opposing box this season than Young-Min Son. And just talk about terrorist tactics. I mean, that having Son that far back defending is not going to lead you to many goals, and defending like that. I mean, Saka with the quick pump fake, I mean, had both guys dancing, and then he laid it off, and White cleverly played it over. What a finish from Partey. I mean, that started way outside the post and came around, and the limbs in the behind the goal were just
Beautiful
unbelievable.
curl.
Like Jay said, I mean, yeah, I mean, really coming back, and there was actually a clip going around. He did that in preseason. It was almost the identical move coming in from the right, and he first timed it and was very close. So, I mean, we're seeing the fruits of the labor at London Colney come through with the pattern play. We're starting to see these similar movements, and it becomes second nature for these players to be in a position and see the space and take the space and take the chance. So yeah, I mean, talking about memorable North London derby goals, I mean, it's always better when you win, but what a way to start the game.
Paul, Richarlison got won a penalty. Gabriel involved in the tackle. It was a clumsy affair, but he's taken a lot of stick online, and people are saying get rid of him. I mean, it's quite fickle, isn't it? This fan base, it's unbelievable. Some percentages of the Arsenal fan base are incredible. I thought, tell me if I'm wrong, that Xhaka sort of fluffed up in the build-up to that. He could have got more involved. And Gabriel is a young defender. He's been doing a really, really good job. Spellbinding. Paul.
Yeah, I think also you have to give Richarlison some credit. Obviously, I'm slightly biased here because he was such a massive player for us last season. But what he's very good, but what he's very good at doing is inviting challenges from opposition players, luring it into thinking they've got a chance of winning the ball, and then kind of moving it away from them. So I think there's elements of that to the challenge as well. I think I said at the start of the pod, I think Arsenal had about 3 or 4 chances to get rid of that ball. It was almost an occasion where you almost thought, just launch it into Rose Ed, just clear it as far as you can. Don't try and play football here. You know, you're under pressure from the top.
Because we got it out once and it came back, didn't it? Unexpectedly. Yeah. What's that about? Get rid.
Well, it was Saliba's header, wasn't it? Saliba headed it clear. As everyone said here, Jade, Lon and Nick, he had a fantastic game. He absolutely did. Yeah, I mean, so I thought the danger was over at that stage. Obviously, Tottenham recovered it, got it back into the box again. But even at that time, I had about 4 or 5 defenders there, all in good position. And really, I think it just needs someone to be decisive and just say, right, no, this is an occasion to forget the football, just get rid of the ball, get rid of the danger, give the throwing away, reorganise and defend it. And I'm sure that's something Arteta would have noticed, would have picked up upon. I'm sure at the Colney training ground this week, whoever's doing the defensive coaching will be drilling the team. Look, if you have a similar situation in the past, don't give away a penalty. Don't let the opposition back into the game, because the key to seeing out seasons is if you're ahead of the game, you've got to stay ahead and don't give away an easy opportunity.
I'll tell you, it was just so disappointing, wasn't it, as well, because we were all over them like a cheap suit, and then they managed to get that, and it's so frustrating because you think, oh, now we've got to start again. Lauren, 49 minutes, Jesus, he got that poacher's goal. I mean, he does some classy stuff, doesn't he? He's like shimmying. There was a point where he did a hip wiggle and a shoulder drop, and he was cutting through there like they weren't. The last time I saw that was Thierry Henry.
Yeah, no, I did think he had an absolutely fantastic game. I think it was in the commentary or the pundits afterwards said that there was a few chances that he probably could have done better on. But I think he was playing a bit of a deeper role, a bit of a false nine to kind of draw a bit of space out. If he had been in that poaching position the whole game, I think the game would have been way too tight throughout. That was fantastic. I think that was pretty poor goalkeeping from Lloris, which is something that we haven't really seen, to be honest.
Panto season, it's behind you.
We'll take it. But yeah, no, it was super. And that's the kind of, when we think back to last season, when we were that close, I don't think Lacazette would have been in those positions. I don't think Aubameyang would have been in those positions. So it is showing that we are a different level, as Jay mentioned earlier, 2-3 levels above where we were. So yeah, that was great.
Right, cherry on the cake, Jay. It was 61 minutes. The rebirth of Granit Xhaka just continues, doesn't it? He's an epic player for us at the moment. I don't know what's going wrong. They're singing his name, singing a song for him. He's winning man of the match. Unbelievable. Walk us through that goal, Jay.
Yeah, Martinelli came in from the left and went across sort of the 18-yard line and laid it off to Xhaka, who, I mean, Eric Dyer, I think he's still going the other way now, isn't he? Like, and I mean, I don't know what you
Can't
guys
stand him.
No, I don't know what you guys thought, but as soon as Xhaka took that touch, I kind of knew he was going to score. He does strike the ball so cleanly, and it was always going to go in that far corner. And again, he struck it really well, and another great performance. Xhaka, I mean, when we've spoke about him at length, I've never been his biggest fan, but this season you cannot fault him. He's a leader on the pitch. He's very much looked at as a leader from his teammates. And if we had signed him in the summer and he was playing this well, we would be absolutely raving about him. And he looks a bit lighter. He looks a bit fitter, and he looks like he's enjoying his football. He's enjoying the responsibility. I don't know if you saw the team photo today, but he was to Mikel's left. And that's always your vice captain, isn't it? Your captain's to your right, or vice versa. So, great goal. Can I just ask Paul something? When Richarlison was with you guys, like, was he when he left to go to Spurs? What was the feeling amongst the fan base? Because, like, Richarlison he's got the face of a Spurs player, like. So I don't know if you remember a few
like
years.
A half-sucked topping.
I do want your answer. I do want your answer. But there was a few years ago. You remember Robbie Savage when he played for Leicester?
Yeah,
Everybody hated Robbie Savage, other than Leicester fans. And Richarlison is definitely that kind of player. Every team hates him. And I just wondered, what were you guys? Because obviously he was a big player for you, and he scored a few goals in a difficult season. But I just wondered, were you guys happy that he left, or
Obviously, Jay, in an ideal world, we would have wanted Richarlison to stay, and I think his contributions were surviving last season. It was immense. He scored 6 goals in the last 9 games. That got us over the line, definitely. I think most rational and sane Everton fans, and I thought a few who do fit that description, would say that they wished him all the best, because he stayed with the club. He'd been loyal. He'd been there for 4 seasons. He wasn't agitating for a move all the time. He wasn't, saying he wants to move on to a bigger club. He gave us 4 really good seasons. He kept us up, and from my perspective, I just thought job done. He's earned a big money move. Personally, I would like to see him gone to Europe rather than the Premier League team. But yeah, I think for most Evertonians, we always appreciate the efforts he made in keeping us up last season, and his contribution over the 4 seasons he played for the club. Because you're right. If you don't support the team he's playing for, he's not a likable figure. And he gets some unbelievable criticism sometimes, particularly like Jamie Carragher, who's knocking about football, for going down and tackles and things like that when he's been on the end.
Now play nicely.
when he's on the end of some awful challenges. But yeah, so I mean, from my perspective, I wish him nothing but the best, because I think he's a really good player, and I hope he has a good World Cup as well.
Paul, has he always been that sort of testy, tetchy character as well? Because he looks like I don't know, looks like he's won a fortune on the lottery, but it cost him a quid, and he's a bit annoyed about it.
Yeah. From day one, it's always been that. I quite like having an aggressive, narky forward in the team. And he's always had. Jay mentioned before about the connect with the fans. Richarlison's always had a fantastic connect with the fans. He's always the first to run over, give his shirt to any of the young kids there at the end of the match. And even when the team's not playing well and you're struggling, you can always expect them to kind of dig us out of the hole. I mean, even that last game of the season when we're 2-1 down against Crystal Palace, about 15 minutes to go, and he just produced this curling shot to get us back to 2-each. That actually changed the whole tenor of the game. So, yeah, I mean, you either love Richarlison if he plays your club, or you hate him if he doesn't. But he's a very, very good footballer. He really is. And the fact he's Brazil's striker, and he's actually getting chosen with Jesus at the moment, isn't he? He gives you some indication of how highly rated he is there.
Well, it's nice to see he's fitting into the Tottenham pattern, falling over in the box, left, right, and centre. Because that's Harry Kane's job. That's what he does best. Anyway, let's do some stats. Arsenal 22 shots, Tottenham 7, Arsenal 9 shots on target. That lot 3, 65% possession for us, 35% for them. 565 passes for us, 307 for them. 90% pass accuracy for Arsenal, 78% for them. Lauren, this front three that we've got now is quite scary, isn't it? It's a really, really good fit, whether it was intended or designed or accidental. Those three are something to be treasured.
Absolutely. I think, at this stage, opposition know just how good Saka is. We see that every game. There's at least 2 players on him all the time, and somehow he's still creating chances. I don't understand it. Jesus, again, he's doing everything that we want him to do and more. And I think Martinelli is the unsung hero in that front three. I really think that, almost every game, I think his his dribbling stats, can't remember them now. I read them this morning on the commute. They're definitely gone out of my head, but they're very impressive. I think he has the most dribbles in the Premier League, if that makes sense.
I thought it was Harry Kane dribbling.
Not from the mouth. But yeah, no, so I think it's really exciting. And I think, injuries, as long as we're okay with them, long may it continue. But in saying that, there's some good options on the bench there as well. I'm looking forward to seeing a bit more of Nketiah now with the Europa League games coming up as well, just to see, what he can do, because Jesus is singing his praise at almost every chance he can get. So obviously he's seeing something that he's confident in, which is a nice sign. So yeah, no, it's good. I mean, there's very little to be complaining about as an Arsenal fan right now. And I can't think of the last time we've all said that. So
no, you won't hear us moaning. Hear us crowing a bit. It's interesting you said about Martinelli. He's been involved in 46 sequences of play that have led to Arsenal to have a shot this season. The only player in the Premier League capable of matching Manchester City's Kevin De Bruyne and Mohamed Salah. So it tells its own story, doesn't it? He's a really sharp cookie. And I saw a picture of him the other day where he was like a little boy. He was like a 13-year-old boy, and he's obviously been beefing up in the sort of weights and all that sort of thing, because he looks massive. He looks hench now. Jay, let's get round to picking out some players that really intrigued you and you thought they were worthy of man of the match.
God, everyone.
There was quite a lot, wasn't there? It was a series of really cracking performances.
Yeah, I mean, Saliba was he didn't even have to get out of second gear, did he? He was just
so comfortable,
thrown in a nutmeg, just dribbling the ball. We need him to sign the contract sharpish. He was superb. I thought, like I said earlier, Ramsdale made a big save right at the start from Richarlison, and that hasn't really been mentioned too much. I thought he was good. His distribution was really good. Ben White was fantastic. Partey, that goal. Xhaka, superb. Martinelli. I think I'm going to go for, just to maybe pick out somebody a bit different. I thought Martinelli, he was just relentless all through the game, and he's been like that all season. And like you said, Tom, he's definitely beefed up a bit. I kind of hope he doesn't get picked for the World Cup. I hope he's, conveniently just left out for somebody else. I'm going to go for Martinelli. They were all superb. Jesus up front was a nuisance. He's so unselfish. And I was so glad to see him get his goal, but I'm going to go for Martinelli.
You just don't know what to do with Jesus, do you? He's just such a handful. Interesting, you mentioned Saliba versus Tottenham. 100% aerial duels won, 100% take-ons completed, not dribbled past once, 96% pass accuracy, 11 ball recoveries, 6 passes into the final third, 5 duels won. I'll do a partridge in a pear tree in a minute. 3 tackles made, 3 clearances. Kane and Song in his pocket, and I think that's about right. Nick, let's go with you next. Who stood out for you? Who would you make player of the match?
Yeah, I had a really, really hard time deciding between Saliba, Xhaka, and Partey. I mean, I think I said last time, we're just a different team when Partey is in the team. We can crank it up a couple notches, and him adding that goal is tremendous. Xhaka just continues to defy everything that I thought he was, and this renaissance he's had is unbelievable. And yeah, like Jay said, Saliba was, we're running out of things to say. I mean, we were worried about the high expectations for him, and I think he has easily surprised everyone somehow. Still, I'm going to go with Partey because we've been waiting for that goal, and that really set the tone. And he was just tremendous in midfield. Was so happy to see him on the team sheet because that made me so confident that we're going to take care of business. And he played a huge part in that.
Paul, who was the standout for you? Just don't say a Tottenham player. We'll pull the plug. That's it.
Yeah, well, for Charleston, obviously. No, no, for me, I thought Xhaka was tremendous from start to finish. He was involved in 3 of the goals. He led by example throughout the match. I loved the way as well, after Arsenal's first goal, the way he got all the teams together and huddle, calm them down, like, let's focus. It's only one goal when you keep going. And I think those derby matches, to me, are won and lost in midfield. If you get control of the midfield, then you're setting yourself up for victory. I thought Xhaka dominated the midfield. I don't think he gave the Tottenham a chance. I don't think Højbjerg got a look in against them. So I was just very impressed with his whole performance. And given the background he's come from, when he was a figure of hate almost 2 or 3 seasons ago amongst Arsenal fans, he's really turned that round. I think he's 29 now. And he's played 106 times for Switzerland. This guy, he's a good footballer, So I think, led by example, and you want a player like him for the forthcoming fixtures coming up because you're going to be crucial to Arsenal's success this season. So I was, from start to finish. In fact, from the first game of the season to the game of the weekend, I've been hugely impressed with his contributions to the team.
Well, I don't think you would have found us crowing about him sort of 6 or 7 months ago. Myself, Jay, probably Nick as well. I don't know how you sort of viewed Xhaka back then, Lauren, but what about you? Stand out?
Bit boring. I think I'm going to have to go with Xhaka as well. And I always think back to the Euros, what was it, 2 summers ago now, a year and a bit ago, when he captained Switzerland and he just had this absolute fire in him. And I remember thinking, like, God, I wish we could see that in him in an Arsenal shirt. And we did. And I think, football is such a fickle game at points, and we see that constantly in the Premier League in particular. And I think Xhaka's, fairy tale redemption story, it kind of echoes what Arteta's gone through at the club as well, the amount of hate that he's got. And now, he's the bread and butter in everyone's eyes. So I think for many reasons, I think Xhaka's story is a lot bigger than just him. And it was much bigger than just, a few goal contributions in a North London derby. So, it's a bit cliche, but I'm going to have to go with him as well.
As for me, I'm going to go for Thomas Partey. Exceptional performance, silky skills, breaking up play, looking to support these strikers up there. And he got that goal. And my God, he'll never score a better goal than that if he ever scores again. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it?
I think it was his 57th shot from outside the box. I remember seeing.
Well,
so we just need to wait 56
you?
more, and then hopefully we'll get another one.
Right, let's have a look at that scoreline. I'm going to make a prediction for Bodo Glimt out of Lord of the Rings. We're going to do that on for Thursday. We're playing, which is it's come around real quick. It's just manic. Who wants to go first? Jay, put us in the picture. What do you think? Don't go red cards and sending off again, will you, please? The nerves can't stand it.
I don't know much about them, to be honest. So I'm going to go for...
They're in the top flight.
3-0. Yeah, they must be. They must be. 3-0.
3-0. Yeah, that's good.
Ketia to grab a couple, maybe.
Nick?
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-0. I think this changed team just hasn't had a ton of time together or just a ton of time at all. But I trust at home we should be just fine. Excited to see Marquinhos somewhere too.
Lauren? Come on, you love it. You love it.
I'm not confident in a clean sheet, to be honest. We haven't seen much of Turner in goal, but I've said before, I'm not 100% confident with him there. So I'm going to say maybe 3-1, 2-1. I'll go 3-1. But I don't think we'll be keeping a clean sheet, to be honest.
We won't make you predict, Paul, but what do you think? Do you think Arsenal will just cruise past this one? Sounds like a load of gas fitters, doesn't it? And chippies and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, you should do. I mean, one of my friends...
I may really regret this, might I?
I don't think so. one of my friends lives in Belfast. He's a big Linfield fan, so Linfield played both of the Linz earlier on in the competition. So he went to the game there. Yeah, he was quite impressed with them. I think they're actually doing better in the Norwegian league than what you think. I think they're second or third at the moment. So but either way, Arsenal at home, no matter what team Arsenal puts out, should get through that game comfortably. So I'd be quite disappointed with anything less than like a 2-3-4 goal win.
Yeah, I'll go along with that. It's got to be about 4-0 for me, if to be fair, because the next game comes around really quick, doesn't it? Right, let's have a look at the Liverpool game. That is going to be, it's one test after another, isn't it? It's just one more test. But Liverpool aren't playing that well. Let's just say that. And if you look at their back line, it looks a bit dodgy this season. Virgil van Dijk doesn't seem anywhere near how he was before the injury. I mean, he was a superb player, no doubt, and he's still top professional. But Jay, how do you see it all going? I think we've got a really good chance here.
Yeah, I still think it's a really tough game. Absolutely, no doubt. They're still a really strong side, and I expect us to continue where we left off against Spurs, and start the way we have in pretty much every game this season. I mean, we have to be confident. It's a really tough game, though, but score, I don't know.
What's gone wrong, Jay, this season? What's happening down there?
What's gone wrong? I think they may be coming to the end of they're quite an aging squad. The players that they've brought in, especially Nunes, they invested in a lot of money, and he hasn't really hit the ground running. He struggled a little bit. I think he got sent off, didn't he?
Against Palace.
Yeah. They obviously lost Mane. We touched on this, didn't we, a pod or two back? And they're so heavily reliant upon Van Dijk. A couple of seasons ago when they were defending the title, when he got injured against Everton, and he was out for the majority of the season, they badly fell away, and they heavily rely upon him. Against Brighton, I don't know if you saw that game. Brighton could have been about 3 or 4 up in the first 15 minutes, and they were quite fortunate in that game.
He's lost some pace as well, hasn't he, Van Dijk? Yeah, I mean, he wasn't the most pacey player, but he lost a yard.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of players in that Liverpool squad that are very, very comfortable. There's not much. Excuse me, there's not much competition for places in certain areas, I don't think, but they're still a good side. There's absolutely no doubt about that, and they'll pose a real threat, and if we're not on it, they're good enough to take us apart. So but we're full of confidence, and I'm sure the atmosphere will be great inside the stadium again, and it's become a real fortress, hasn't it, the stadium, and the change around in the atmosphere, and there seems to be a lot sort of a younger fan base inside the ground, and that's massively working in our favor. So and again, if we win, it's one more tough game. Like Paul said, we're getting ourselves into a position where even a draw maybe won't be a bad result. I'm not saying I want a draw, but we're going to drop points, and I just think maybe to have such a tough game after what was a massive a massive game, not just physically but emotionally. You can imagine a lot was sort of taken out of the players. So to have a game so quick of this magnitude in the league again, it's going to be a real task for Mikel, I think, to get the players onto that level again and get them to be performing at that really high level. But let's, fingers crossed we can get a result.
Nick, prediction from you in a minute, but Klopp has had to do a lot of explaining, hasn't he? Which he never thought possible. He's coming out, he's defending his players and his team in general. Who would have thought we'd see them? Where are they in the league? They're about 11th or something, aren't they? Something really shabby. Who would have thought we would see Liverpool in that position after last season and the season before?
No doubt. I mean, they brought it to the brink. I mean, those 2 seasons they didn't win and then won the league. So, I mean, 3 just heavy years. And I think that's taking its toll on them mentally. and physically. It's just they have, like Jay said, they haven't quite recruited well enough to fully replace these guys yet. I think losing Mane was a huge loss, and they're actually closer to relegation right now than they are to us at the top. So I know the season is young, but that's I think just shows how much they've really struggled. Last time I checked, they were up 2-0 against Rangers. So nice little bounce back for them. Trent had a fantastic free kick, and just reminding me that the quality they have. I mean, Salah hasn't quite kicked off, and they just have those guys that just need half a chance. But that's similar to Tottenham. They don't need too much, and they'll kill you over that. So, yeah, I mean, I totally see what Jay is saying. Just the emotional energy that went into the derby. I think hoping the Europa game in between is kind of a nice, and I think we'll rotate significantly. Hopefully everybody. I don't know if we'll be able to rotate everybody, but hopefully almost everybody's rotated. We get a game out of the way and then can go into Sunday with almost a clean slate and hopefully even more confidence. I think, I mean, what a better chance to get a result against Liverpool, which we haven't had in a long time, especially in the league. I think, this is about our best chance for a while that we've had, but I just don't know if we'll get over the hump. And I don't know if that's me just being pessimistic because we've had so many results go our way, but I could see a draw for sure. I love that it's at home. I think I definitely don't think Liverpool's as bad as they've been made out to be. They're definitely not what they used to be, but everything's going our way right now. The confidence, the squad we're able to pick. I'm going to go with a draw. I'll go 1-1.
1-1, very cautious. Lauren, do you think that there was a bit of complacency when it came to the summer and the transfer window, not really realising that some of these players had kind of gone past their best?
Maybe. I think we need to remember Liverpool played an awful lot of games last season as well, and we're off the back of a much shorter summer than we usually have. So I think exhaustion is playing a massive role. They've been hit significantly with injuries early on in the season. But we can't forget that pretty early on in the season, people were comparing. There was a debate who was going to be better, Haaland or Nunes. That's obviously out the window now. But I mean, there's no point talking about that now. Mm-hmm. But that was a topic. That was one of the hot topics of the summer. That's what people wanted to know: who was going to be the better striker. So they did what they thought they needed to do, but it clearly wasn't enough because they hadn't accounted for the aging squad, and 2, just the sheer exhaustion of players coming off the back of a very hectic season. And I'm sure, I can't think of their full starting 11 now, but I'm sure they'll be hit pretty hard with the World Cup coming up as well. So, I mean, obviously that's a bit in the future. For this weekend, yeah, what I'm most looking forward to is Trent Martinelli. To be honest, I think that could probably be, and I watched the first half of the match as well, Nick, and I saw his free kick. Oof, we don't want to be giving away any opportunities like that for them. It's going to be tough. I think it is going to be tough. Look, what's the difference between Spurs and Liverpool? They can play football. They can play football. They have the capacity to play positive attacking football, but so do we. So I think it's going to be much more even match. I think it depends who's going to go out and fight the hardest, because Spurs Arsenal is very, very different. Even United, they have a very, very different manner of playing football. Sorry, I have to say it. I think it's going to be for a neutral, it's going to be a great game to watch. Maybe not so much for us. I think we're going to have our heart in our throat for most of it. Prediction, I'm going to be confident about it. I think we can do it. Why not? We're 11 points ahead of them. If not now, then when?
I'm going to go for an exciting 3-2 win to the Arsenal. I think it's going to be one of those games where it's full out war. And then we're just going to do it. I can see Martinelli just kind of rinsing up there on the flank, and also Saka as well. I mean, got to give these boys credit. Paul, Absolutely. You don't give a stuff, do you? Whether they get stuffed or not, do you? Yeah.
No, I mean,
quite looking forward to it, aren't you?
I am. As long as you win, that's the main thing, definitely. And I think that as long as that kind of indicates there as well, there's never been a better time for.
Oh, Nick's making me look a bit dizzy. Well, it's not for a walk round.
Yeah,
Calm down, Nick. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah, I think as Lauren's just outlined there, there's never been a better time for Arsenal to play Liverpool. I mean, we played Liverpool in the Derby Goodison about 3 weeks ago. It was the weakest Liverpool team I've seen play Goodison for a while now. That's partly due to us being better, but they just weren't the same team. And it's one of the few times I sat back in the last 10 minutes of the Derby and I said to my son, we're not going to give away a goal here. I don't normally say that when I'm playing against Liverpool. So I think their potency up front is nothing like what it's been in previous seasons. I think, as Jay outlined, the loss of Mane has been immense and they haven't replaced him. Darwin Núñez, seriously? I mean, is he a Premier League player? And Lucas Diaz, yeah, he scores some spectacular goals, but half the time he doesn't know what he's doing when he's got the ball, which is either strength or the weakness, depending on your viewpoints. I think what Arsenal have to do is play on the weakness of Liverpool's defence. Now, when me and you, Tom, spoke to Van Dijk, spoke to Paul Davis.
Oh, I would love to.
He said about Virgil van Dijk not being the same player since his injury. Paul went into some detail about the mental effects of injury as well. So I think he's not the same player. He's no longer the so-called world's best defender anymore. Terence Trent D'Arby, sorry, Alexander Arnold. You get the reference, Tom.
I do, yeah. Musical. Our podcast family will recognise that musical reference. It wasn't bad. Good.
Yeah. Well, Alexander Arnold, to me, has been the most overrated fullback in British football for years. The lad can't defend. He can't cross out across. He can't tackle. How he's getting this glorified campaign to get him to the World Cup, I have no idea. So, if I was Arsenal, I'd be hitting Liverpool with pace from the first minute, put them under pressure, have Jesus buzzing around Van Dijk, close them down, don't let them play the ball out of defence, get Xhaka to impose up the midfield. Because I think for this game, the first goal is crucial that Arsenal get it, because I think if Arsenal get the first goal, they're going to win quite comfortably. What they can't do is concede the first goal to Liverpool. So it's going to be a really entertaining game to watch. I don't see it being a high-scoring game particularly, but I think Arsenal have got enough there to get the 3 points. I think I would go for the 2-1 win to Arsenal. I really hope it's more, but I'd be delighted with the 2-1 win.
I bet you do as well. Guys, thanks ever so much. It's been a brilliant podcast. Sorry, we've had to whitter on because it's North London Derby and that's what you do. You milk it. You give it a severe milking. Just leave you with this before we go. Erling Haaland, he's going to break all sorts of records going, isn't he? The fastest to 3 hat-tricks. In third place, it's Ruud van Nistelrooy. He took 59 games to get to 3 hat-tricks. Michael Owen is in second with 48 games. Erling Haaland, 8 appearances. It's staggering, isn't it? He's going to get, 60 goals this season at this rate? It's phenomenal. And it makes me worry when we come up against them, because that's going to be a real test. That's a baptism of fire. But guys, thanks ever so much. Brilliant podcast. Thank you very much, all the podcast family, for keep supporting us and subscribing and pushing up the audio figures as well. Guys, I'll catch you soon. We'll meet up again after the Liverpool debacle. Take care of yourselves.
Cheers, Tom. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
See you later.